Okay, now we're looking at membership in the Sen. What is the Sen? Whatever. You think if I could do this slide right, I could at least get the Senate on there. So obviously, I'm missing the ATE there at the end there. It just didn't turn out the way I want to. It's Roman numeral 3. Give me a break. All right, let's move the slide down. So we're looking at the qualifications and terms in office. Remember that our Congress is bicameral, bi meaning two, okay? So we've got the House of Representatives. Now we're looking at the other part of the Congress. This is the Senate. All right, so qualifications and terms in office. Well, the requirements are a little bit more for a senator. You got to be at least 30, all right? Being that 25-year-old ain't going to cut it. You got to be 30. They want you to be a little older, a little wiser if you're going to be a part of the Senate, okay? Instead of being a citizen for 7 years, you got to be one for 9. But again, you don't have to be a natural-born citizen. You don't have to be born here in order to be a senator. But if you're going to be one, you better almost be here for a decade and be legal if you're going to be a part of the Senate. And you have to be a legal resident of the state they represent. And remember, since they represent the entire state, they can live anywhere in the state and it's not a big deal. As opposed to a representative, because the states are broken up into districts, they want you to live in the district that you represent. It wouldn't make sense for the person who represented the district in Mendocino County and other outlying areas if he lived over, let's say, in Temecula or down in San Bernardino County and down in Southern California. That wouldn't be cool. But being that senators represent the entire state, as long as they live somewhere in the state, that's fine. There's a lot of options, okay? Now here's the one thing that's interesting here is they're elected for 6-year terms. In the House, they're only in there for 2 years, okay? Even our president, he's only elected for 4 years. But our senators, they're in there for 6. And so because of that, it's a pretty important position. So I think it's a real travesty if you have a lot of people in California or any state that they can name off the president without too much of a hitch, but if you ask them who their 2 senators are, and they're there for 6 years a pop, and people don't know it, that is a travesty, all right? Now, 1/3 of senators run for election every 2 years, as opposed to the House where every single seat is up for re-election in 2 years. They only take 1/3 of the senators and run them up for election. So, every 2 years, only about 33 senators are up for re-election. So there may be a year where neither of your senators are up for re-election. That just happened actually in the last California election. Neither Barbara Boxer or Dianne Feinstein, our 2 senators, were up for re-election. But in the next one, I believe it might be Boxer, I think. I could be wrong, though. That will be up for a re-election in the next presidential election. So for some reason, the founders of our Constitution, they didn't want the possibility of having new representatives, an entire new Senate possibly, so they just limited it to make sure that only 1/3 could be re-elected every 2 years, okay? Salary and benefits. So let's talk about the perks that come with the job. The Senate and House set their own salaries. Man, I wish I had a job where I could set my own salary. But evidently, well, it's got to be approved by Congress. But, if Congress is going to be up in their pay, how often are they going to veto that or not let that, pass through Congress? So they get to set their own salaries. Benefits include medical, pension for life, which means after they retire, they get a check, all right, to essentially for the rest of their lives by being in Congress, all right. They got gym. They've actually got a gym in the Capitol for them to work out there. Gym allowances and they get allowances for trips when they go back to and from the representative district or their states. They get, they do that every week. They, and just it's on the taxpayers' dime, all right. And then staffing, they've got to have their secretaries and people to help keep their stuff in order, especially. If you're a senator, you got a lot of things going on there. It makes sense to have, have staffers help you out and stuff like that. So, and again, the medical and those kind of things, they get that for life. So, it's awful nice to be a senator, I guess. Privileges of membership. So there's other additional privileges that go along with it. All right. When attending Congress, they are free from arrest, except for treason or felony. And it kind of makes sense that if they're in the middle, if Congress is in session, you don't want to have a representative not be able to vote, because they represent a district because of something kind of stupid, whether it's be like jaywalking or whatever it is. They've got to be able to represent the hundreds of thousands of people that are within their district. So unless they do something like they've committed murder or done something against the United States, it's expected that they will have professional demeanor. They won't do anything stupid, as they have their position. But we also have to make sure that they are able to vote whenever major legislation is on the floor. Okay. Then they cannot be sued for statements on the House, Senate floor. And this is a good thing. We want our representatives to not be fearful of saying anything, because, again, they represent their district. And it happens to be, whether it's a First Amendment issue or not, we don't want our representatives to kind of be compromised and be afraid to not say what they are, kind of bound by the position to say if they, whatever it may be. So they don't have to worry about libel or anything of that, whatever they say on the Senate House floor. Now, they say that on their own time, on TV or whatever it is, and it's not, that's a different story. But as it applies to on the House floor, if they're debating a bill or whatever it is, that they can say whatever they want without any fear of repercussion. Members of what the heck is that? My goodness. Well, again, it's Congress. You just can't see the letters there because of the picture. But it's Roman numeral 4. It's the last slide. Let's do it. So we're going to look at the characteristics. What is the physical makeup of Congress itself? So big letter A. So we're moving down to little letter A. About half of the members of Congress are lawyers. Makes sense, being that we're dealing with law here. You're going to have a lot of individuals that are experts at writing and interpreting law. Not sure if that's a good thing, but it doesn't hurt, I guess, but I'll just keep my mouth shut on that one. All right, moving on to little letter B. Many are from businesses, banking, and education. So it makes sense. A lot of people that have ran businesses, entrepreneurs, banking, those major institutions that have a lot of stake in the kind of bills and laws that are put through Congress. Education. So sometimes you got teachers and people that have been superintendents or city council members or whatever it is. These are all, you've got both public and private sector representation here, which is a good thing, all right, in that sense. Congress has become diverse through the years, racial, ethnic, gender. So, yeah, that has changed. I mean, obviously, if you've looked at Congress back in the 1800s, it was a bunch of white guys, but today it's changed. You've got a lot more women representing congressional districts. I mean, even as senators. Look at California. We got 2 female senators, all right? And then seeing a lot of different racial groups as well. A lot more Latino representation in a lot of states that normally, even 20 years ago, wasn't the case. So California has a lot of Hispanic representatives and African Americans in areas like in the South as well and stuff like that. So you're seeing a good mix up, but regardless, it shouldn't be the color, or the race or any of those things of the representative. All that should really matter is, can they effectively represent their constituents? That's what the main concern should be. Nothing. Everything else should be of a lesser priority. Okay. Big letter B, re-election to Congress. Again, I've used this term before. It's a vocab term. An incumbent, members already in office. So if there's an election coming up and somebody's trying to win back their seat, they want to go for it. Let's say if it's a representative for another 2 years, they're going to run an election to try to win back their seat. They are the incumbent. The person who is trying to run against them to take their seat is the challenger. All right. So to give you an example here is if a president's running for re-election, he is the incumbent. He's the one who's already in position, and so by default, an incumbent usually has the advantage because of name recognition, those things like that. And so they're the one, and that's the way it works. Whether it doesn't matter what party they're in, it's just there's name recognition with the person. The people know who they're dealing with. So because of that, incumbents raise money easily. Remember that when an election cycle, they've got to get a lot of money together in their war chest to fight an effective campaign to win back their seat. And because of that, people know who they are. They've already proven that they can win the seat because they've done it. So because of that, they've got some major clout, major power. They can raise a lot more money than a challenger can. All right. So and are recognizable to voters. Whenever there's another presidential election coming up, we've got one coming up in 2 years. You're going to have Hillary Clinton. By default, she's got a little bit of name recognition because her husband was the president of the United States. So unless somebody else comes in on the Republican ticket with a more well-known name, she's going to have a pretty effective way of pulling in a lot of money for her war chest to battle it out in 2016. Let's see if she'll run, but I'd say there's probably about an 80% to 90% chance she will. All right. Now, they use their position to solve the problems of voters who return the favor. That's essentially the way it works, all right? So what politicians say is that if you vote for me, I will solve your problems, whether it be providing social programs in certain cases. That's what Democratic individuals are known for. I will, provide certain programs or whatever it may be for you. If it's a Republican, they may say, I'm going to put less restrictions on the economy in order to grow it and put more jobs out there to help boost the economy or whatever it may be. Okay, so the reason people vote for individuals is they're looking for these individuals to help them in some form or fashion, and by voting for these people that get voted into office return the favor by doing the things that they campaigned on that they said they were going to do. Okay, so anyway, that is it in a nutshell. I think that's all of it. So make sure that you have these notes in their entirety and your other notes too for the other sections, and bring them with you. Study, make sure you can read them all, and do well on the test.